My name is Jeremy Hines, and I love Progress, Texas, because who doesn't love Progress and who doesn't love Texas, you know? So you gotta love it. Gotta love that combination.
It is April 29th, and this is the Progress Texas Daily Dispatch, rapid response on the breaking news stories Texas progressives need to know. I'm your host for this week, Tatum Owens, and here at Progress Texas, we amplify progressive values, leaders, and actions. Through our no paywall podcast and digital media, we make Texas politics easy to understand and participate in. Lies in Texas are well funded by the far right, but your support for fact-based independent media hands the mic to millions of Texans. Our thanks to Pat Smothers, Theodore Lowe, and Michelle Mapes for their ongoing sustaining support. Kicking us off today, Gabby Birnbaum at the Texas Tribune reports on a new poll from Texas Public Opinion Research, directed by Luke Rorford, which shows State Rep James Talarico leading both Republican Senate candidates in his race to unseat Senator John Cornyn. To be specific, he is ahead of Cornyn by 3 percentage points and of Paxton by 5. Birnbaum notes the Democratic candidate's support is, quote, powered by voters of color, college-educated Texans, and independents, unquote. She also mentions the sizable disparity in his favorable impression on voters, in contrast to Paxton and Cornyn not faring as well. Corruption and pandering to the president will do that for you, especially when Trump's favorability is also in the toilet. This comes from a close poll surveying 1,800 likely general election voters, and all percentage points are underneath a winning 50%. But what a harbinger of potential progress to be made this year off the coattails of this top ballot race. Of course, a comparison to be made to Beto O'Rourke's Senate race, where his numbers ended with a 3% point margin, failing to unseat Senator Ted Cruz. But that event sparked a movement that helped elect so many progressive and Democratic leaders down ballot. We are living in that movement still, that's been building and exponentially so because of a second Trump administration still dead set on scapegoating immigrants. This year could mark a second likely blue wave during the midterms, and pulling ahead so many months out seems to me a sign that we have to dig in further. If you're also experiencing deja vu, let's hope this momentum delivers a win in this crucial Senate seat that Trump himself has deemed a threat. Exciting to see him scared of what Texans can do. Meanwhile, 2 updates since the White House Correspondents' Dinner shooting. First, continuing off this 2026 Senate race, Faith Bugenhagen at the Austin American-Statesman writes that Senator John Cornyn is targeting Talarico's pastor, Dr. Jim Rigby, whose remarks on the assassination attempt and referring to people's potential mixed feelings, which, yeah, lots, had Cornyn up in arms, calling for Talarico to denounce his pastor. What Cornyn failed to mention was the other half of Rigby's statement, saying we have to, quote, realize that violence is not going to get rid of the problem we have, unquote. So Cornyn is twisting words, and the other development from the shooting is that Trump is doing his own twisting, trying to make his $400 million taxpayer-funded ballroom happen again. His very own Mean Girls fetch catchphrase, stop trying to make it happen, it's not going to happen. Ahmed Humble at the Houston Chronicle reports that some Texas Republicans, like Congressman Chip Roy, have taken the shooting as a new opportunity to rally behind the Vanity Project. Rep. Ronnie Jackson from Amarillo said, quote, we can't wait for a 4th assassination attempt. Build the ballroom now, unquote. You can't wait. He sounds excited for what they're deeming a, quote, necessary security upgrade, unquote. And not to victim blame, but the guy's got his own secret security team, and plus maybe he could start with toning down the fascist rhetoric and authoritarian takeover. That might help. Moving on to Texas weather woes with an update from James Osborne at the San Antonio Express-News. Congressman Brian Babin warned President Trump about cuts to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration's, or NOAA, budget. Babin chairs the House Science, Space, and Technology Committee, and the rep from Houston, which has benefited greatly from research on the coast, seems to understand the importance of dedicating funding to researching and providing solutions for extreme weather events, saying, quote, we want to protect property and lives with NOAA, unquote. Maybe lead with lives next time, but the sentiment is there. And speaking of weather events, we've got some storms brewing with a cold front coming in yesterday afternoon to North Texas and beyond soon. Threats of giant hail and tornadoes, along with severe storms, are potential threats to look out for. So grab your jackets and check your local weather and news ahead of the weekend when a second, stronger front moves through. And for folks listening in North Texas especially, with the biggest impact for the storm, stay safe. I'm hoping it's not too bad, and other folks from San Antonio are probably hoping for the same, with the famous Great Texas Air Show returning for the annual event this weekend, if weather permits. Moving down the state with updates on the water crisis in Corpus Christi, which could become the first modern American city to run out of water. Colleen de Guzman at the Texas Tribune reports that Corpus Christi's city council unanimously delayed a vote on cutting water during a historic drought. They were asked to determine how much water consumers would pay or be limited to regarding the impending Level 1 emergency, which could come as early as September. As of right now, they are relying on temporary water projects and need to find new sources of water desperately, de Guzman shares, to meet demand. Water users could be forced to constrain to 5,250 gallons a month, a limit that is exceeded by about 30% of its customers. About the city's customers, Councilmember Eric Cantu pointed for the city's largest water customers, petrochemical plants totaling about 20 refineries and other companies, to take the burden to match their 60% use of the water supply. All in all, that amounts to industry using more than double the amount compared to residents, at 30 to 35 million gallons a day compared to only 14 million used by residents. And that's just Corpus, where, according to de Guzman, quote, more than 95% of the city's water supply comes from surface water and its two main reservoirs, Lake Corpus Christi and Choke Canyon Reservoir, which have dropped to just 8% of capacity, unquote. Adding to this, the reporter who broke the story on the water crisis with the Texas Tribune and Inside Climate News, Dylan Badur, joined by Nina Satija, KUT News, and Emily Salazar, KEDT, released an update sharing about other impacted towns by the water crisis. The coastal city also provides water to a 7-county region, including 20 other municipalities. Three Rivers, Orange Grove, Alice, Taft, Ingleside, Aransas Pass, and Beeville are all named, and most have issued disaster declarations. Whether you're listening from the coast or you have family in multiple impacted towns like I do, this is a pressing concern that we will continue to share reporting on. Finishing out today with two somber updates. First, developments on the Camp Mystic floods that killed 25 campers and 2 counselors, from Emily Foxhall at the Texas Tribune, who has covered this story since last July. She reported that investigator Casey Garrett deemed that camp counselors and children were vastly unprepared for the floods, hearing from the Eastland family and camp victims' families at the Capitol hearing on Monday. Those in attendance heard harrowing accounts of how the campers and counselors received no training, no evacuation plan as required by the state, no life jackets, no ladders, no preparation for what was to come. After the Tuesday hearing, Foxhall shared an update that the camp's director apologized to the families of those who died in the flood. Of course, he also lost his own father that day, who died trying to rescue campers. Meanwhile, Cece Stewart, whose daughter has still not been found, told legislators that the Eastlands have proven themselves incapable of protecting children. A significant statement, with the fact that the camp is trying to reopen this summer, which will likely result in getting their license pulled based on legislators and Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick calling for the denial of their operating license renewal. Lastly, from Jamie Landers at the Dallas Morning News, James Broadnax, up for execution on Thursday, had his clemency denied unanimously by the Texas Board of Pardons and Paroles. Historically rare, clemency was a last-ditch effort to halt the execution for the 37-year-old who was arrested and convicted of capital murder at 19 for a crime that his cousin, Demarius Cummings, allegedly committed and even released a statement saying that he committed. Broadnax's execution will proceed as planned. A hard reminder that our justice system is extremely flawed and embedded in deep racist beliefs and systems, with Landers noting that Broadnax's rap lyrics were used as evidence against him and the state struck black jurors from participating in his trial. That's all for today, but before you go, there are not one but 2 Texas elections on the calendar if you want to make some changes to who's representing you. Local city-level elections this week on May 2nd and the statewide primary runoffs on May 26th. For the midterm runoffs, early voting will begin on May 18th. More on all this at our carefully crafted voting information website, govotexas.org. And there's a nice online tool from the Texas Tribune that shows you exactly who will be on your runoff ballot based on your address and party. See that link in the show notes. Houston listeners, the next episode of our In Progress Roundtable comes to you on radio in the middle of a new Thursday afternoon block of progressive political programming. In Progress starts at 6:30 p.m. every Thursday on KPFT 90.1 FM. After the Progressive Forum and before the midterm show with Ernest Wittering, and runs a second time every Sunday morning at 11 on KPFT FM HD2. With your support, we hope to expand our radio footprint beyond Houston this year. Click the link in the show notes to make your tax-deductible donation to help us reach new audiences via Texas radio. And we have not one but two live events on the calendar right now in both Dallas and Houston area. First, we'll be in Cypress at the very cool Creekwood Grill for a live podcast taping with new Cyfair ISD board members. We want you to be there, but seating is limited and an RSVP is required to attend. That will be on Wednesday, May 20th, and check out that link in the notes to get registered. Thank you to Sean Finney, who has sponsored the event. Additionally, here at Progress Texas, we're getting ready for our 16th anniversary. Thank you to our sponsors, Howard Cleon, Charles Zeller, Alex Andrade, the Honorable Dick Levine, the Honorable Bill Peterson, and Mark Yagjian for celebrating early with us. That celebration will take place on June 16th with drinks, light bites, and a fun review of the highlights of our successes over the last few years. Save the date and check out that link to RSVP and sponsor in the show notes. That's the Progress Texas Daily Dispatch for today. Links to all of these original stories can be found in our show notes. And when Texas lies are well funded by the far right, your support for fact-based reporting is needed and appreciated. I'm Tatum Owens. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you again tomorrow.